crash course in manipulation. You don't actually tell the person what you want them to do. You help them realize they want to do it so it can't be traced back to you.
Once upon a time, there was a beautiful princess who had been told all her life that she was ugly. She had been kidnapped from the palace of the king as an infant and was always looking into a mirror that lied to her. She had no idea who she really was. So sad and lonely, she married a mean little man that treated her harshly. After many years of pain and torture, one day, at the end of her rope, ready to kill herself, she broke the mirror and cried out for truth. The king heard her cry and sent his strongest and shiniest knight to her rescue. The king had been searching for her for a long time. The knight spoke the words of truth to her that she had so longed to hear. Finally, she saw who she really was and the wealth of her inheritance. Nothing would ever be the same. But she cried and cried because she knew she was never supposed to marry the mean little man. And the mean little man got meaner as he realized that he was losing his grip on the beautiful princess. He began to curse the king and the knight. He refused to let the princess go. The princess began to wash off the dirt and ash and darkness of her captivity. She got so shiny, the mean little man could barely look at her. But he would lash out at her sometimes, and he wouldn't let her go. He got meaner and meaner every day. But the king had a plan. He knew that the princess would fall in love with that knight, and the knight couldn't help but fall in love with her right back. She was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen, and she was so shiny. And yet what could he do? She was trapped with the mean little man. There was a line that was drawn. No one saw it, not the princess, or the knight, or the mean little man. But the king had drawn the line, and when it was crossed, by the words and deeds and the blackness of the heart of the mean little man, the king would act. He had a plan. He was just, but there were laws, deep laws, about the nature of things that many didn't understand. But the king was very wise. One day, after dancing ever nearer and nearer, the mean little man crossed the line. And before anyone could even see it happen, the king himself came to that proud, angry little man, and the man knew that his time was up. He looked right into the king's eyes, and his heart stopped beating. No one was happy that it had gone this way. The mean little man had been trapped in his own prison of anger and bitterness and fear for many years. But the king had a plan. The princess was free, and the knight was free. The knight told her how beautiful she was, and how honored he would be to always fight for her and care for her. She already had his heart, and the king had already decided it. But the knight asked her to marry him so that they could be together forever. And the princess agreed. Before all the kingdom, the king spoke and said, "My daughter was lost, but now is found. This day I wrap the arms of my best knight around her, and I myself have put his ring on her finger. Rejoice all throughout the kingdom. This is a day of song and of dance and of tears of joy. What I have decreed will stand, and no man can undo it. There is much in the kingdom that must be done. May they go as one in my authority, and free all those trapped in darkness with all my blessings." And they went, and they found all the others trapped by the lies they had listened to all their lives, and were married to their own mean little men. And they freed all who longed to hear the words of truth. They washed the ashes and the dirt from so many, and found many lost princes and princesses of the king. And the kingdom got shinier and shinier as they walked hand in hand, and laughed and sang, and led those who had been captives to the valley of rest and peace and joy. and they lived happily ever after. All of them at the feet.
Hey, Dorothy.
And asked today's hostess, Dorothy, about an unusual practice that's led to the reshuffling of spouses at FOTM. It's called rib marriage.
You have 2 kids with Scott, but you're married to Tyler now, and then Scott is married to Jennifer now? Mm-hmm. Okay.
FOTM members believe the voice of God tells couples who they should be in an intimate relationship with, even if they're legally married to someone else. The term comes from Doug, the community's go-to person for couples counseling. He says the idea was revealed to him by God and inspired by the biblical story of Adam's rib. One couple I met here is Jennifer and Scott. Both are legally married to other people, but Jennifer considers herself to be Scott's rib wife. She left her legal husband after hearing God's voice instructing her to do so. Scott's legal wife, Dorothy, also heard that voice, separated from Scott, and is now the rib wife of Scott's best friend. Talk about the sort of state of your marriage when you came to this community.
And I started becoming more independent in my decisions. It just really upset him. I realized how far we were growing apart. I just wanted us to fit together, and it wasn't happening. Doug really did the best he could to try to pray us through and help us work it out.
Did he suggest that you two should separate?
He never made any recommendation like that whatsoever.
Crash course in manipulation. You don't actually tell the person what you want them to do. You help them realize they want to do it so it can't be traced back to you.
He's not controlling at all. If Doug Perry's a cult leader, he's the worst one in history.
And when did you two start to see each other?
It was shortly after my ex left. Mm-hmm. We kind of knew that the Lord was putting us together, but we didn't start dating or physically come together in any way until several months later.
Right. Like, you realize that that's going to look horrible, right, God? Sometimes he asks us to do things that, from the outside perspective, looks very poor. It's just a concept that is not necessarily definitely found in Scripture, but is not unscriptural. Does that make sense?
And y'all are still married?
Yes, we are still legally married.
Okay, but now you consider yourself to be married to someone else?
Yes.
Is this a sinful relationship she's in?
Crash course in manipulation. You don't actually tell the person what you want them to do. You help them realize they want to do it so it can't be traced back to you.
She's going to have to answer to God for that. It's not my job to enforce the 10 Commandments.
Did God tell you to take your wedding ring off?
Yes, I believe he did.
Is it possible you're just having an affair?
I think it's a fair question, and I can absolutely understand why someone would ask me that. And I think from the outside, from a secular point of view, or even most mainstream Christians would look at it that way, and I understand that.
And then you've just decided to go have children with someone else.